Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am your host, Jay Cluett, and as always, once again, I'm riding solo without my co-host, Mark, who is still on paternity leave, covering Deep Blue Sea adjacent films that I am less familiar with, and this week we are biting off one of the big ones. Jaws is obviously a film I've seen many times before, but the sequels have yet to darken my door until very recently. So today we're looking at Jaws 2. What is Jaws 2? Well, it's the sequel to Jaws. It's the same thing. It's Amity Island, a small island community. A shark arrives, hilarity ensues. Chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, is the guy there to deal with it. The main holdover of the cast. We'll get into that. So I need someone who is more familiar with this film to come and help me dissect it. So joining me is my former co-host and the current host of the Lambcast, and the guy behind Kirkham Movie Day and 80s Nostalgia Central, I want to say, is Richard Kirkham. Richard, welcome back to the show.
Hey, just when you thought it was safe to get back on Skype.
So, I believe, Richard, Jaws is one of your favourite films.
It is probably the film I've seen the most in my life, the one that I admire the most as a piece of filmmaking. It's not necessarily my favorite film. That's always a close race that it gets run with something that is, I have huge nostalgia for from my childhood. But if you were to ask me on any given day, Jaws would definitely be my favorite film.
Okay, because there's like Lawrence of Arabia's up there for you, Goldfinger. You got
Yes.
there's a lot of great films up. Like for me, Jurassic Park is number one, but there's the likes of Deep Blue Sea, there's The Great Escape, there's Wall-E, there's Peter Jackson's King Kong. These are all films that I absolutely adore and all jostle for that number 2 spot on a regular occurrence. So what is it about Jaws that you love before we get into the sequel? Why does that stand out in your memory?
First of all, it's a perfect movie. It's people like to call it a horror film, and I understand that. I disagree. I don't really think it's a horror film, even though it has horror elements to it. It is a great suspense drama thriller, and it is really well told, and it has some of the best characters that you will ever encounter in a movie, including maybe the best fictional character ever invented for a film. Quint is the essential character to a successful film about Jaws.
And I would say we feel his loss in Jaws 2.
Yes. You'll notice that he does not appear in any of the sequels, which means that success is going to be a little bit tougher for all of them.
Yes, I for Jaws 2, they didn't. I kind of appreciate they didn't try and replace him. Like he's not here, and Matt Hooper, Richard Dreyfuss, the two of the main trio who are missing, and there's no efforts to sub in like, here's Quint's apprentice, played by I don't know, a young Sean Connery.
The closest we get is Hendrix, who is Brody's apprentice.
Yes, we get and there's the kind of zoologist person that Brody speaks on the beach about the washed up orca is kind of a replacement for Hooper, because she has the same kind of background as him, but she's in that one scene and we never see her again. So Brody is the hero of the film. We got his apprentice for a little bit. His wife, Ellen, played by Lorraine Gray, she's back. Lorraine Gary, is back. She is more involved this time around, but for the most part, it's the Brody show.
That's for sure.
Again, I still enjoyed Jaws 2 a great deal. This is technically the second time I've seen it, but I remembered not a damn thing from the first time around, so it may as well have been the first time. And I didn't actually watch it that long ago. It was like within the past 5 or 10 years that I saw it, but yeah, nothing stayed. Whereas Jaws, it's all in there. It's great. So I'd say the other than the loss of those main two characters, the main difference between the first film and the second is they add a bunch of kids.
They add a bunch of kids, and they also add the shark.
Yes, well, I mean, we've seen the shark now.
You don't have to substitute for not seeing the shark at this point. They actually have some working models and animatronic characters that they get into the movie. I don't know why they were. Well, I have one reason why they're a little bit more successful. They shot it someplace else.
Where was this one shot?
Down near Florida, off of Destin, and So instead of trying to do it right off of the shores of Martha's Vineyard, where they were doing the sea scenes in the original, which was complicated, the floor of the ocean was a little bit lower, and of course the weather was a hell of a lot more inconsistent. When they moved to Florida to do the water shoot, they had a little bit more control, and they had less. There were still problems with the elements, but fewer problems with the elements.
Okay, it did, yes. And also not joining them from the first film is the director. Steven Spielberg is nowhere to be seen in this one. I believe he didn't want to come back. There was somebody else was set to direct first.
Yes,
John Hancock, I want to say.
Yes, that's who was supposed to do it, and in fact, he did apparently shoot for a month on the film. He was assigned to the project almost from the very beginning of the project, right after Jaws was released. He was on the project for 18 months, did a month's worth of filming, and then got fired. And, the creative differences thing seems to be the explanation that everybody goes with. But basically it came down to the fact that the MCA president, Sid Sheinberg, wanted his wife, Lorraine Gary, in more of the film. And he didn't want to do that. And it was apparently what would you say? Call it a sword fight between the producers of the film and the studio head. And, and he got caught in the middle. And he was apparently not very adept at dealing with studio politics at the time, and he's the one who was the sacrificial lamb. She's still in the movie, and the scenes that he wanted her in, she's in. So,
which scene is that?
She gets on the boat with them.
Oh, I see. It's just not for very long.
No. But Sheinberg wanted his wife to be a little bit more involved in the film. She was a co-star in the first film. I thought she had a good part in the first film. But apparently it was, written differently, and they had two different scripts that they were working from. The original script had been worked on by Hancock and somebody that had recommended Hancock for directing it, Howard Sackler, who had written some of the work for the first film, but was uncredited for the most part on the first film, and then his script basically got shuttled aside again, and Carl Gottlieb came back in, who they tried to hire, and he said, "You're not paying enough." Then they hired him to rewrite it and had to pay him more than they would have paid him in the first place. So it went through a lot of hands, and some changes that I could see why they would do them. We'll probably get into that a little bit more when we talk about the story.
Yes, well, whilst we were on the director, so in place of John Hancock, they brought in Jeannot Szwarc, is how I'm going to assume his name is pronounced. My apologies if it's not, but Szwarc is his surname.
My guess is you're closer to getting the French correct than I am.
He is, I would say, a very workmanlike director who you kind of fit him in, and he directs a film but doesn't add a lot of flair to it. Because he did this, he did Santa Claus the movie, a film I watched a lot growing up, Supergirl, Somewhere in Time, these kind of... The direction doesn't stand out a lot in those, and then he's done a lot of TV work since then. He's done like Ally McBeal, Without a Trace, Heroes, show you're watching at the moment, Supernatural. He's done a few episodes of Supernatural, just a lot of things here and there. 15 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, but nothing that you're like, oh my god, it's another Jeannot Szwarc work. Fantastic.
He's not what we would call an auteur.
No, definitely not. And I think there's only one real scene in this where it felt like there was any kind of directorial flair, which is when Brody's putting the cyanide in the bullets and putting the wax on them. That's like shot real close up. Whereas everything else is just kind of wide shots. Just you put the camera here, you follow the action. That's the only scene to me that was like, oh, this is some thought has gone into what's going on here. We're going to try and show things slightly more artfully. But maybe that was just because it was something happening in micro. It had to be.
I'm not sure that was the director's choice because it makes it more intense and interesting, or because you wouldn't know what the hell was going on otherwise.
Yes, it was the only thing that kind of was different to the rest of the film for me. There's none of Spielberg's, the zoom on the beach, the vertigo zoom. none of those touches, none of that flair, none of the long takes from the ferry.
No shooting stars.
No shooting stars. No. Well, fewer stars to shoot in this film, as we say. You got Martin Brody. You got Roy Scheider, Lorraine Gary, and Murray Hamilton are the main three who came back. I didn't recognise anybody else coming back from the previous film.
There's one of the locals, the woman who owns the motel and is talking to them on the beach. She's in like one scene briefly making a comment. And
Okay.
That's it.
Well, forgive me for missing that.
And a couple of the councilmen are also in one scene. You'll recognize them. The
Okay.
guy whose fence gets karate chopped, and the one who makes the joke about whether or not that's cash or check for the $3,000.
Right.
They're both in that one scene where Brody goes to the city council to try and convince them that something is going wrong. But like you said, it's not like they all had important parts. They are basically, extras.
Yeah. So it's no surprise that they didn't make much effort to bring them back. I would have liked the guy who goes, "Oh, what?" to come back with this, because he's like the best part of the film. And there is the parallel to him might be when Brody's dealing with just the minutiae of town life before the shark makes itself known. And there's that guy who's complaining about his neighbour dancing in a towel in front of his son's window.
Oh yeah.
Because he's an interesting guy with a big, just a kind of big bulbous nose on him.
Right.
So I remembered him a great deal. So I feel like they could have just brought in that same character to do that role. But, oh well.
They'd have probably had to pay him an extra $50.
Oh heavens, no.
They didn't want to do that.
No. Okay, so let's get into the plot a bit more. So the main plot here is there's a shark. The shark's back, and one of the other big differences between this one and Jaws, I assure you this won't be the entire concept of the podcast is comparing it to Jaws. We're going to compare it to Deep Blue Sea. But whereas in the first film there was like a plan to go out and hunt the shark and kill it and bring it back, this time around no one believes them that there's a shark at any point until they're looking at a shark. I think unless people are physically looking at a shark in this film, they don't think there's a shark around. And so the plan to go out and kill the shark and end the film there isn't really a plan. It's just all reactionary. The kids go out, they get in trouble. Brody goes out to say Martin and his wife only get concerned when they find out their son is out there. when they find out the kids have gone out and the deputy reels off the names of the kids, it's only when they get to Mike that they suddenly start going, "Oh my god, this is a problem now. Our child is out there in the water with these sharks. All these other kids, who cares?" And again, when they find out that Sean is still out there, that's when they go, "Oh, we just go, Sean's still out there."
They're both there. My God. Twice the motivation now.
Indeed. So yeah, the kids get in trouble out at there's normal shark film related events. A kill happens here and there. They're investigating if there's a shark or not. The main crux of the film happens halfway through when all the kids go out sailing. The shark attacks and all their boats get rammed together and they're adrift out in the middle of nowhere. And Brody's got to go out and save them. Is the kind of the climax of the film. But there are a few memorable. I always like to highlight the deaths of films along the way, and there are some very memorable shark-based deaths along the way. Are there any that stand out for you as being highlights?
Well, of course, the water skiing scene is probably the one that jumps out, because you get not only a girl disappearing as a result of a shark attacking her while she's water skiing, but you also get a boat explosion because somebody's reacting to a shark attack. And, what the thing you do to fight back against a shark is hold a gas can over your head and pour gasoline all over yourself.
You douse yourself and your boat. Yes.
So,
but my favourite part of that scene is just the image of a water skier with a shark fin beside them. That's a great shot. Just
That's
the
awesome.
fin rising up. And
well,
it's on the poster. The water skier with the shark behind her is on the poster. So they knew what they were doing when they made that.
If you like that, you will enjoy Jaws 3.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, listeners, Jaws 3, spoiler alert, is what we're covering next week. And